wanted to wrap up today with an open roundtable between the people who are directly involved on the device management side of things, which is obviously the people who have the most insight directly into how USP is used in the field, what things have been done with it so far, what things can we do with it so far, what are a lot of the issues. But I really want this to be open. I'm a strong supporter of roundtables that aren't just people talking at you for an hour or 45 minutes or whatever. So please feel free to interrupt at any time with any questions for any of these people. And you don't have to wait for me to bend up the leading questions out. However, I would like to start with each of you just introducing yourselves one more time. Explain, some people know who you are obviously from the talk this morning, but do explain a little bit about your roles at your respective companies and what it is that you guys are doing for the device manager side. So how it is that you know what you're talking about, right?
Okay, I guess I'll go first and since I was introduced before. So I'm Tim Spets. I work for Nokia. I'm in the, I can't remember which division, under the CTO team. I was originally led on TR69, so I've been with this whole suit since day one. Worked obviously on creating USP. Today, I'm currently running the USP project stream and the Smart Home project stream with Jason. Like I said, I've been in the game since day one. Probably a lot of the IoT work was involved with that when we brought that in right after basically USP, before and after a little bit actually. So, throw any questions at me with IoT and I'll try to answer those too as well.
That's his too. IoT right here too. John Blackford was just up previously. So, you know most of that, but so I'm with Vantiva. I work for our product that is the road management product that does TR69 and USP road management. I'm part of Vantiva that just came over from an acquisition of a portion of CommScope. So I'm going to track this back here. So this portion of Vantiva was bought out from CommScope. When that was bought out by Aris, it was bought out by Pace. Oops, sorry.
No, the other way around.
You're right back. Sorry. But so yeah, CommScope bought Aris. Aris bought Pace. Pace bought 2Wire. So essentially, I've been coming since 2Wire days when TR69 was kind of originally being created. So yeah, it's a lot of different companies, the same person. Just generally responsible for the product on the product management side of our remote management solution.
Thank you. Okay, so once again, I'm Tzvi. Try it. You heard of it. For those who cannot pronounce, so Tzvi Skapinker. I'm the CEO and VP product at Friendly Technologies. What's the role of the COO? Is actually do everything, whatever the CEO doesn't want to do. So he has the COO to do that specifically. I'm responsible for the entire line of product for Friendly Technologies, which means device management platforms, both for broadband access routers, TR69, USB, and also for IoT. And we discussed a bit about the role of USB introducing or in the emerging market of IoT. And so this is my goal is actually to provide and produce good products that our customers will be using and they will be providing their business needs, especially. So, listen.
So my name is Daniel Egger. Same as John previously said in his presentation, I wear many hats. So actually I've been using TR69 and doing a lot with TR69 for, 15 years or so. So in the early days of the DSL forum, I guess we've also been a member almost forever. But yeah, I only inherited the standardization part within the Broadband forum from another person like 8 years ago.
Was it that long?
Sorry?
Was it that long?
Yeah. So I've been coming to this group ever since. We've always been very active in standardization, so especially Tier 69 data models and USP. And yeah, I mentioned it before, I happen to be one of the authors of some parts of the USP specification. I've contributed to Tier 69 directly and indirectly, and I'm a program stream lead for data modeling. Within Axiros, except for, handling the standardization stuff, I'm actually the owner of all USP products, so I'm the major USP evangelist in the company. I'm bringing or educating people about USP all around the globe for many years now, ever since it came out. We do have products that speak USP and have been since the early days, so we both have a USP agent, we also have a USP controller, we also have some bigger customers, some major customers, the largest one also sponsoring this event. And we have generally a lot of experience with Tier 69 and USP products, so we manage several 100 million devices in the field, we alone, and yeah.
All right, that's what we do. Cool. So I wanted to spin it that way, actually. So from this sort of holistic device management perspective, in respect to your, each of your product lines and stuff, because I know a lot of you end up covering different use cases from different directions. What for each of you are the top use cases that operators are asking for right now, like right now? I have a feeling I know the answer to some of those things, but and if you want to go down the road of how that has changed over time too, I'd be interested in hearing about that too. So whoever wants to start, you have a microphone if you want.
Yeah. So one of the most common use cases, and one that actually pretty much requires you to use USP, is basically we are trying to solve customer support problems. Since most of the customers are actually equating, internet doesn't work with Wi-Fi problems. They don't know the difference. That has been a hot topic ever since the pandemic really took over and everyone was trying to work from home, etc. So that's really the main thing that we are currently addressing, and it has been very helpful to have USP because it really allows us to get a lot more data and the data more efficiently, so that we can actually run some useful analytics and give some insights into what the actual problem within the customer home, for instance, is, and have the ability to basically say, this is what you could try in order to fix those problems. So this is also changing a little bit now that we have so much information. We can also do things like proactive suggestions, so we can actually, before the problems even appear in the field, we can try to address them, to identify them. So in the hopes that the customer doesn't even have to call, or if the customer calls, the customer support will have the correct answer already, or know what the problem is, rather than spending a lot of time to actually look into the issue and figure it out on the go. But there are other use cases as well, but that's the most common one.
See?
Yeah, well, I can actually relate to that as well, but a Wi-Fi, an enhanced Wi-Fi resolution is actually a major part. As Wi-Fi was one of the main contributors, I think, to the developing of USP, because we wanted to have more insight what is going on. But what we see right now is a major interest around QoE, quality of experience, and not just Wi-Fi. Now, Wi-Fi is just one segment, and we are looking into the future and the future role, and we saw that also, before about giving additional value-added services on top of that simple residential gateway or device or CP, whatever you want to call it. We need to find a better name.
That's what I'm saying. You need to come up with that better name. It's a huge opportunity.
Device is a good name. It can serve us both in IoT, but so quality of experience is a major part as of today. And it relates to the way that we're collecting information, okay? That's the main part here. And this is why USP comes in handy. Both events, new events that we can get from a device, bulk data information that we can retrieve from a device. And run on top of that, some AI algorithms in order to have a valuable prediction. And not just regarding Wi-Fi, in the future we'll see also additional interfaces, Matter or ZigBee, whatever. So yes, that would be one major, I think, question that I'm getting all the time from different operators and service providers about, okay, how do I measure this?
Right.
I'll go a little different direction on some use cases. I mean, those are definitely up there. But another one we're seeing quite a bit is software module management, being able to install applications, and not just on residential gateways, but also on set-top boxes. Some of the first deployments that we saw for USP were set-top box devices. I think part of the reason is that Tier 69 has always been kind of thought as a little heavyweight for set-top boxes. There's not a lot of writable content of the data model for a set-top box. Basically, when the device comes online, it's talking. So there's not a lot of configuration to be done other than, if you change the configuration of its Wi-Fi or its outgoing connection, you basically lose that outgoing connection. So, but there's a big thing with if you look at Android set-top boxes and being able to upgrade your TV applications and stuff like that, and some operators are trying to push that. So there's a big drive around that aspect, and we're starting to see more of the RGs also trying to, kind of move from proprietary Docker solutions to more software module management as defined by the Broadband forward.
Yeah.
To add on to what all these guys have already said, I think what I kind of see sometimes is I'll call it a mixed bag of those special requests, right? Because that's usually what bubbles up. When we usually hear about it, they want to make a change to specification because there's something that isn't quite right, or they want to do like the TR69 USP interoperability that we added not too long ago, to where you can identify a device by device, those type of things that the customer, when they deploy in the field, it becomes a real problem because all of a sudden they had something there that now they can't, see any longer. So we had to go back and actually put that into USB to kind of help out with that. Wi-Fi management obviously is probably up on top there. Latency quality experience, just like what he was talking about. I'd say those are all. I don't know if you guys have any other ones that I might have missed that you guys see.
I think you covered all the data connection.
Yeah, data collection, right?
Software module management.
Yep.
These are the major ones.
Yep.
Are you crowdsourcing your answers now?
You got it right. Trust the people that know.
Like I said, if you have any audience questions, feel free to jump in anytime. I won't stop you. So I wrote down a couple of things to follow up on there. One of the things that just got me thinking from both what Daniel was saying, what Tzvi was saying, it's almost like, if we're starting to do all this proactive stuff, and the operator, if you're fixing problems before the end user even knows, right? We did see from one of the survey results that basically the consumers are willing to pay more for quality, right? It's like cost was like the fourth concern over just making sure that it works all the time, right?
Well,
no, go ahead. That was my question, but go ahead.
Well, yes, some customers are willing to pay for better quality, but that's more like a general thing, right? So it's not exactly as it has been envisioned by a couple of companies in the past, and also came up in the surveys, that people are actually willing to say, you know, I'm going to get a premium service from a vendor, I pay extra for better support. They just expect a good quality, and if the quality is not there, then they will basically move on to a different operator. So,
But hypothetically, they would be willing to pay for service to an operator who is charging more if they knew that it was.
yes and no, but there's like a margin, right? So if it's a little bit more, then yeah, having a good reputation will definitely help you to get the customers, but it's not like, you know, you pay double just because the company has like a very good internet service and customer support, and yeah, the network just works reliably. John?
I think it also depends where in the world you are.
Yeah.
In the US, there's a lot of cases where you only have one option as your service provider. So, you know, they kind of, you can maybe go, you have different options as far as if you want to try fixed wireless access or something like that. But if you wanted a you know, wired internet connection into your house, sometimes you only have one option. But I do think that the question is really more is if you had to pay $20 more a month, would you want an extra gig of service, or would you want a better quality of service?
Right. Well, I know my answer.
I think most everybody at this point that I know are asking or answering that is better quality.
Yeah.
I don't need another gig.
Right, right. So my question was, how are we balancing, you know, the proactive management and the resolving problems before they even happen, and making sure that the operation is seamless, with making sure that the operator is actually seen as, you know, and that what they're doing well is actually being seen by the consumer, right? Like, is there anything that, you know, in the device management world that you guys do to try to, like, make sure that the operator is getting their good net promoter score, because, you know, it's like, oh yeah, that's right, I really love my operator.
Well, there are many aspects of that, right? So at the moment we are mostly focusing on the customer side. Well, we here in the discussion, I mean, not we as a vendor. But in fact, if you want to improve the service in general, so you want to reduce outages, you want to make sure that everything is, you know, working all right and the customers get good service, you actually have to start at the network level. So, but there's also a use case where you can actually use the information that you get from the device directly in order to gauge the network quality. So that's going back to what Tzvi said. That you can basically quality of experience, right? So you can make sure that you notice problems early. You can make sure that the usual you know, quality of the service is high enough, at least, to be perceived as good, and that you react immediately, or you get, you know, you get those aggregations of problems, and as soon as those appear, basically. Yeah, the network operations center or whoever might be involved, like network operations, they get informed and have the chance to actually react.
Right.
So that's big. So especially, for instance, for cable operators, for instance, something like PNM, so proactive network maintenance, is very important. So basically, you detect degradations in your network as early as possible by doing regular you know, measurements of the network, basically figuring out where problems might occur in the future, because you have some rodents, for instance, biting the cables or what have you. Don't laugh, that would be a problem.
I know.
Yeah. So being able to detect that, and having the ability to basically measure those things with, you know, devices getting more and more capable, more and more intelligent, having more and more features built in is a huge thing. So basically, yeah, figuring out or using the capabilities of the devices to do those network maintenance tasks.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, there is also a big portion that is being done already today, in terms of speed and latency testing. Like, you want to identify, you want to make sure that the SLA that the customer is getting is actually what he's paying for. It's very common in the US, there's a program, the FCC is regulating this. I hope that this regulation will, be also applied in other countries as well. Because one point is, yes, we want to identify problems. We want to identify problems sometimes before they're happening, but what if the customer is not getting the service that he is entitled for? That's the main problem, I think, with customers already today. The basic thing is that every customer that is getting a connection to any ISP, first thing he does speed test, right? It's out of the box. It's like, okay, I'll do speed test to verify that I'm getting my service. So why not do this for a customer?
Yeah.
Why not? We are already supporting this, right?
Right.
Guys, it's there. It's basically back in the days of TL69, you could run speed test, latency, and we are using this much more today with different customers. Not just to identify or to say if the customer is having or getting his SLA, but also to identify potential problems.
Right.
Yeah, so demonstrate one service provider in the world today that guarantees any level of latency with their service. They are offering a gig service, multi-gig service. At the end of the day, we can very easily understand that the peak average utilization in a customer home is still under 100 megabits per second, the peak time range. So what is the real problem? Quality of experience.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we may be heading in that direction, but I think one of the big problems with a service provider offering some kind of quality of service like that is the Wi-Fi connection inside the house. That's always going to be the big problem because people don't understand the aspects of Wi-Fi and how if you have your Wi-Fi router on the other side of the house, why can't I get my 1 gig service that's going into it all the way to the other side of the house? Or if you have multiple extenders that are using Wi-Fi backhaul, why does that not work unless using 6E or something like that?
This is the other conundrum that's out there. You really expect your customers to understand the technology. They just want to consume it, right?
Right.
And so the ability to offer and meet their quality of experience expectations is really, in my opinion, where we need to go.
Yeah, but the service providers also have, I think I'm starting to see this with some of my discussions, is that if the service provider offers the full package, like the router and the Wi-Fi extenders and the installation, then yes, they can maybe offer that. But a lot of times you'll see people go, I just want your router. I'll go get XYZ company off of Amazon.com and install my own Wi-Fi network. In that case, there's no way that they can offer that. So there may be a potential for the service providers to start saying, hey, I will give you a guaranteed quality of service if you have my whole package and my installation.
Yep, I agree 100%, John. And again, customers, they're out there to consume. Yeah, you're seeing some that will go out on their own, but at the end of the day, they're not network technicians. They don't know what's going on. They don't know where to place the equipment. This has been a conundrum. The service providers are pushing back. Well, why is Wi-Fi as a backhaul out there today? Because they don't want to send technicians out there, right? I mean, they want to cut their costs and then marginalize the service to the customer. I mean, this has been the big problem. I think if we can turn that around and make visible to the customer, when they aren't able to achieve that quality of experience, they aren't going to go run a speed test. They're going to go, why? Is it because, I've got too much Wi-Fi, I don't have enough Wi-Fi, I've got adjacent channel interference, all these things that don't mean anything to a customer. The other part of it, we need to figure out how to message that and get them back to where they can achieve the quality of experience they're expecting.
Right. Well, and competitors are doing it over the top, right? I mean, I go buy a mesh system, and so if you don't have a competing solution for it, someone else is going to come up with it and drop it right over the top, right?
Absolutely.
Well, and it continues that storyline that, one of the things that has occurred to me recently that I worry about is that it is broadband, like internet access to the internet, was the original over-the-top service. Right? It was not
Yeah.
telcos or cable companies that were getting you connected to the internet. It was AOL, and you made a phone call, and that was it. That was the entirety of the involvement of any telecom company was to make sure you could make a phone call, right? So the entire time, it's been a consumer product.
You mean the good old times of CompuServe and AOL?
Bulletin board services.
Yeah.
So
Dial up, yeah, great.
Peter?
Yeah. Just a quick follow-up question, because you just mentioned the problem for the operators that he cannot see what equipment the consumer installs in his network. So, given the recent, let's say, hype around Easy Mesh, I know this is a standardization problem in how to manage.
Everything's a standardization.
Yeah, absolutely. But how do you see this as a possibility for the operator to provide a better Wi-Fi experience in the customer's place?
Yeah, sure. No, well, and John mentioned earlier the Purple Foundation. That's one of the things they're going after. Right? They're trying to solve that. They're trying to come out with a industrial grade, open source mesh system. Right? There's been a lot of effort in all of the companies probably involved here in the different standardization outside the broadband forum to make sure that this is a cohesive, way of doing things, that they can A, pull the statistics back, put the right controls in there, and B, that way that you can still have a proprietary system behind it that's crunching the numbers, doing the AI, making all the decisions for you. But the standards still have to have all the right bells and whistles in there. So I think that is happening right now. I think there's a concentrated effort to do that, to make that better, because you're always going to be competing with proprietary systems, right? So if you don't at least match what they're doing, right, you're going to be.
But in this regard, being the devil's advocate, I mean, let's say for the public foundation, that is mostly for the moment around the operator's gateway at the customer's place, which still enables the customer to say, okay, I'm going out, I go to the Best Buy and get me some Easy Mesh repeater.
Right.
And I think this is the critical point, because out there, the Easy Mesh implementations we see, I mean, price is king here, and so the people just take the solution that's offered by the chipset vendor. So let's say they take whatever, MediaTek, Qualcomm, what they're offering their SDK, and for the chipset vendors is more or less, I mean, we need to show it works, but not it's reliable. So probably this would be another area we could try to work on to improve quality here. But Tim, I'm absolutely on your page. Standardization and building industry-grade solutions here is key. Thank you so much.
So one of the other things that came up in the survey when we were asking about the top challenges, the dealing with third-party devices was way up there. And we didn't ask the question that way, but it was very obvious that what they meant was third-party networking devices, right? It's also dealing with the different computing platforms that their customers have and their different TVs and stuff. But I think that what they were really saying was people buying their own networking stuff. How are you guys dealing with those things, right? Like we talk about trying to standardize topology and stuff, but it hasn't been done yet. So like, how is that being solved right now?
Well, and the other thing too is, the Wi-Fi Alliance, they have a certification program, right?
Right.
You know from being in the test, the Broadband Forum certification program, right? So it's going to have to be steps like that, right?
Yeah.
So I can't throw any piece of equipment in there and say, yeah, it supports Easy Mesh. Well, right? I mean, so I think that's definitely a part of it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely the Easy Mesh protocol standard communications that should help. I just don't think that we've seen a lot of uptake in that yet, and it may be, as Tim was talking about with the purple mesh, is the software. It's like as that kind of starts to evolve, it could help drive that. I think a lot of people are still doing bundled solutions, or they go online to Amazon and they say, oh, I can buy this package of 3 different devices all together for $500, whatever it is. And that's the solution they're going for. Now, from my experience, a lot of these solutions that you're getting off of Amazon are not tier 6, 9, and 8, or USB enabled. So there's really not a path that we can see into that, unless they're somehow, showing up under your gateway. I mean, you can always see that, if they're showing up under the host table, potentially other parts of your gateway's data model. But there's not a lot of vision we have in them if they're not being remotely managed.
Yeah, they're managed by something.
But what we also see is that there are a lot of over-the-top solutions being offered. So those, bundles that you mentioned. So some of the vendors are actually working on having their own solution and basically providing their own cloud-based user interface to see into the customer's home network and to address those problems. So it's not entirely up to the operator, to deal with all of those things. There are third-party solutions as well that can address those problems. It's just if you go into the next retail store, buy some random device, then all the bets are off because the operator lost your, connection, and the third party may or may not offer a solution for that. So.
Sweet, how's that translating into smart home?
That's what I was trying to ask, because I have a question.
Yeah.
So what will happen tomorrow when you will have Matter incorporated into your router? Okay? And now you have a smart door logo, and it doesn't work. What are you calling to? Your ISP? But you bought this through Amazon. Right. So you're calling Amazon? Who's going to pick up? Who's going to pick the line?
But if you're,
That's a good question.
But if you're openly, right? I mean, if part of my product offering is to openly support it, you're going to have to support it, right? I mean, I think that's the difference, because Matter, like any other IoT today, is over the top, right? I mean, so when the day comes when you put that piece of Matter in the router saying, now I'm going to be able to maybe remotely manage this, then you're going to be taking on that responsibility.
If you don't have any possibility to manage this, right? You've integrated Matter over the top without USB. Okay? You have no integration. You don't have any proxy device like USB that you can do something with it. There is no way to troubleshoot this.
Well, but then it's beyond your control, right?
But that's actually what we are adding. So
Yeah.
there will be gateways, Matter gateways that will basically integrate USP just to give you the remote visibility, and then you can use that instead of like a proprietary implementation that uses whatever protocol. You will have a standardized protocol allowing you to manage those devices and to give you the access. So I'm not really sure whether this will lead to, let's say, an open environment where you can take any device and basically connect it to any cloud, and then, just because it's using USP. I mean, in theory that would be possible, but I guess that's not exactly in the interest of the vendors to enable that use case. But there will be certainly, smart hubs that will support USB and will bridge into Matter, Zigbee, Z-Wave, what have you.
Sure.
I'm not quite getting the Matter example, because if you want to integrate a Matter as protocol stack, if you want to integrate Matter as a protocol stack and you are an ISP, you want to have it on your router device, then you need to put a sticker on it that it's Matter ready. In that case, when you put in the sticker, you are taking responsibility for support of the integration.
The device manufacturer.
Or ISP. We as manufacturer will create everything that you want. If you want to have Matter on device, this is no problem.
Yeah, but Matter is over the top service, so which means that you're using Google Home application.
Not
Doesn't do anything with that.
Right, for now.
Matter is a protocol. You can use Google, you can use Home Assistant, for example.
If I'm using Google, if I'm using Apple Home, so...
You have to have it on the, for example...
But Matter is a home networking protocol, so it only works in the home. Any other product around that is currently fully proprietary. So whether you're into, you know, Apple Home, Google Home, Amazon, whatever it is called, so those are proprietary over-the-top services, and that is going to change, right?
Yes, but from my perspective, from my point of view, Matter is something like Wi-Fi. If you're putting a sticker on your device that you are Wi-Fi enabled, then you as ISP you need to support it. Yes, it's something.
No, that's a very excellent point, because this is coming to the crux of the matter, right? Damn it!
No,
I only have one left.
no.
Sorry guys, but yeah,
I was just going to say that. So with Matter, okay, they have a whole security system built in, right? So I could still have my Google Matter whatever system in there. I can have a router that fully supports Matter. They may not be able to see each other.
Yes,
because
exactly.
they don't have, you know, so you've got to be careful when you say, well, Matter's in there. No, that's, if it was, you know, you could argue with Z-Wave or maybe some of the older technologies that all I gotta do is put a dongle on there and now I can see everything.
Yeah.
That's not the same with Matter. So in order to be part of or to bring any of those devices into the router, you have to have a private certificate as a private.
yes,
right?
exactly. You need to be part of the connected home over IP
Right, so-
foundation. Yeah.
But if I'm gonna buy that proprietary system, just because my router says, yes, I support Matter, does not mean that you can see it or support it. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Well, that stinks.
Not without a system.
I think that, definitely at this early stage, I think the service providers would be very hesitant to put a sticker on their device that they send to a customer that says it's Matter compliant or Matter ready.
Well, also, there is no such certification at this time to certify routers for Matter.
Yeah.
Yes, but-
Border routers. You can put a border
Oh,
router
that's a Matter
on the
router.
device, yeah, and then you could put a sticker on.
Yeah, but the point is, unlike, you know, Wi-Fi, which is basically just an extension of the wired network, Matter can actually work completely autonomously. So if you have a smart hub at home, you don't even need something like a cloud access, because you can basically access your devices in the home from your own like smartphone, and it directly connects to the hub. So
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I was just triggered about the responsibility part. So,
No, but
for me, responsibility is on the person who is putting the sticker on the box. Yeah, if
Yeah.
this is for me, but
yeah, that's the device vendor. So
ISP who is
Well, no, but if the operator is branding this box.
yes,
Right.
but you know, most of the devices are probably going to be like off-the-shelf devices.
Yeah.
So
perhaps, yeah, perhaps.
if someone buys an Icotera device, they probably don't brand it, you know, like Vodafone or Deutsche Telekom.
There's some operators in this room right now.
I believe my colleagues have different opinions. But
So, go ahead, Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just very quickly to his point. I think in terms of Matter, at the moment, I think we should differentiate between connectivity. This is one thing.
Yes.
So can I connect to the cloud? Can the Matter devices connect to the cloud, to the controller? And actual Matter functionality. Okay, so those are two different things. Where it's getting tricky is, especially with the border gateway, I mean, some other devices can connect via Wi-Fi, others connect.
Now it's a Wi-Fi problem.
Exactly. And for some, it's connected over thread. Then, I mean,
It's Google's problem.
the protocol is over IPv6, so you know every medium that.
Oh, then it's Tim Winter's problem.
So the last 10 RFPs that my company has responded to all include Matter. All those devices will get a logo from the service provider that is providing that device.
Really?
all branded.
All branded, and we will see in about a year how well Matter moves forward. Because speed, to your point, it's going to be a challenge. Just like IoT has been a challenge for the last 20 years.
Definitely, I think this is a challenge, and one major thing that we need to bear in mind, I think, for the future is how we can utilize USP in order to overcome this challenge. That's the main point. This is what we're trying to emphasize here, I think,
Yeah.
around this table. that we have a solution. It's called USP. Let's try to integrate Matter into USP, use a USB proxy in order to get more visibility into the network, into the Matter network connectivity. This is how we can assist service providers giving a service, right? Troubleshooting and giving the right solution for the end customer. Because today, over the top is great. It's a great feature for Google, for Apple, for AWS, but it's a headache for service providers.
The one thing that USP does, that doesn't exist in Matter today is it gives it a standardized cloud interface.
Yes.
Right? So you don't have that today. Everything's proprietary, right?
Yes.
So here's your chance, Matter, right?
Well, it just so happens that the people involved don't. They like their own solutions.
Well, the point is that Matter at the moment is a complete, autonomous system, right? So there is no defined remote interface anyway. So that's what we are trying to define. So we are trying CSA to pick up, USP as the standard interface for that.
So let's talk about that real quick, because it's going to keep coming up, and I need to hit home the fact that at any point anyone is involved in that organization or is talking to anyone in that organization or anyone in any media situation whatsoever and has the chance to promote that point of view, it's a good thing. Because, we're running up, it's like I said, we're running up against a lot of, not pushback, it's more like the people who were involved in making Matter have made it, and now the rest of it, they want to continue to have control over it, not have it be interoperable, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
But others, obviously.
that's one of the problems that basically there's a pushback from the organizations that say, we've defined Matter, we are continuing to work on bringing more devices to the Matter network, but everything else is not our problem, and we should make it their problem. So
Yeah.
we should really try to put some pressure on them to actually say, it cannot stop there, right? You cannot just have your own island solution and everything else on top is proprietary. But of course, that's exactly what some of the larger companies are trying to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's their way of differentiating. So when Amazon or Google or Microsoft or whoever else is in that game, when they are basically trying to have their own solutions built around, the Matter protocol, for them, that's the only point where they can differentiate. So if there's nothing for them to differentiate, then it's good for us, but it's not good for them.
No, but the problem is the operator getting blamed, and basically the stalling of the smart home as a solution in general, right? Speak, go ahead. I'm just moderating. But
I just wanted to add one simple thing. So if we basically don't get the ability to have this universal protocol to actually manage the Matter network, basically the only thing that remains is the interoperability between the different Matter devices. So you can basically switch from one system to another without having to replace all your devices, because they can still interact with one another. But yeah. For us, it's not a good solution.
Right.
Well, yeah, and I totally agree with what has been said, and also I believe that, what we've seen happening with Wi-Fi, that Wi-Fi became a problem of the service provider, of the operator.
Exactly what I was just going to say, yeah.
Now, the same will happen with Matter.
Yeah.
It will go from a pure connectivity to a service.
Mm-hmm.
And now we need a way to maintain that and to operate and to see how we are actually integrating. So it took some time for Wi-Fi, and we heard right now that the operators are looking for a better mesh controller, right? And we were like, why? You have a device with a mesh controller, but yes, we need better mesh controllers. And I believe that this will be the next evolution, also with Matter.
I agree with you. I think especially as soon as you put a sticker on a box that goes in someone's house that says Matter supported, Matter enabled, or something like that, that if anything goes wrong, it's just one more reason to call the service provider.
So I actually disagree with that, because unlike something like Wi-Fi, which as the only purpose of actually extending the internet, into the air. Matter is actually useful even without, having cloud connectivity, because you can still do everything locally. So I don't think you really can compare those, right?
Right, you still need the connectivity managed.
Yeah, but you're not going to run into, let's say, major issues, right? So it's not like everything will just fall down if you don't get the bandwidth into the Matter network. That's the main purpose of Wi-Fi.
Let's see what happens when you are trying to enter your home and your smart door, which is operating over Matter, is not working.
But that's the point. You don't need internet to enter your home.
Yeah, but
Or you do need connectivity.
But something
No, you don't.
Yeah, most of the smart locks work on the Bluetooth. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
We're saying that back up.
yeah, but most of the Matter network can also work autonomously. So you don't actually need internet connectivity. So it's not quite the same.
Right.
Yeah, short question also related to Matter. I understood that there are good solutions on the table how to connect with the Matter network, so what's on the way, we're working on that. How about mapping the data to the tier 181 data model?
That's a great question.
That's exactly what we're working on. So the idea is basically to map the complete topology of the Matter network directly into the data model. So if you have a device that supports USP, is Matter enabled, and the vendor actually implemented that functionality, that you will have access to the information from the Matter network via USP.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea.
Yeah, having access is one thing, but mapping the data I think
Yeah.
we have a completely different data model than tier 1.
No. So what we are generally doing with standards that are coming from different organizations is we are basically trying to adopt to their way of thinking and modeling things, and we're just moving them, or we are converting them one-to-one into our way of addressing or providing a data model.
Right.
So that's what we do with all the standards. So you have the Wi-Fi data elements, which is directly defined by WFA. We have things like Nokia, which is coming directly from whatever the
Mobile lines.
Yeah, mobile lines. Yeah. Is providing, and we have a lot of other of those one-to-one mappings like DOCSIS as well, which is coming from cable labs. So those are just one-to-one mapped into the data model, and we're planning to do the same with Matter. So it's going to use their terminology and the way of thinking and expressing things, and we're just mapping it into the tier 181 data model.
So there will be a subsection in the tier 181 data model, which is then related to Matter, for instance. All the Matter data.
That's the working theory. Yes.
It's probably going to be called device.matter.
Okay.
Matthew, do you want to chime in on that conversation? I think we go ahead. Tim, do you have anything to say about that?
Device.proxy.
Can you talk a little bit about the Matter situation, Tim?
Yeah. What doesn't matter? Yes.
I think that's your first. You have two more.
Yeah, I mean, what we've done in the past, that Matt's a little special, like I was talking about the way that they connect to that, but what we've done in the past is we've created basically a template for any type of Z-Wave device, any other type of IoT device out there, such that if you want to put a dongle on there, if you want to go out and find these devices, use what we call proxy device, and underneath that, you have basically available to you the whole TR181 data model. So it's got, I'll say, a basic set of very generic switches and sensor information. So what we said was, okay, well, these devices have become more and more sophisticated. I'm going to have, I guess better be a good example. I'm going to have new types of IoT connectivity in that. So what we said was, all right, well, we're just going to throw everything we have in TR181 and make it available to that proxy device, so that I can model, if I had a router that was, let's say, the old use case would have been UPnP, but if you have a way to manage that router not via USP, you could represent it with a proxy device in our router. So this is kind of the base, what we have built from day one is the abstraction layer. So right now, you know, you could have any number of IoT devices underneath, and as long as you have a way to connect to them, you can represent them in an abstract way. And we can do the same with Matter.
And we do have protocol support for a number of protocols, ZigBee, Z-Wave.
Right.
Actually, well, actually, we took Matter as an example.
Yeah.
It's not the main case here, right? We're not a Matter formula. But this was a great example to show how we can transform the router to adding additional value-added services for the operators, for the service providers, right, of the world. How you are taking this router into an IoT bridge and connecting different type of devices. Well, Matter was just a small example, which we had a small debate. But and this is the reason why we're talking about the theory of operation for IoT devices, which was already incorporated into the USP data model. Tim wants.
Yeah, you just fired your one. Yeah, and this goes back to what Jason said earlier. You know, we sat down in 2015 and we said, okay, you know, we want to improve TR6 and do something better, but one thing we wanted to do is move into automation. One thing we wanted to do was support applications, right? We wanted to say, all right, maybe I do want to turn my light on and off with USB. How can I do that, right?
Right. We did.
You always connect, right? No, this was a key driving use case when we started USB. So
I'll find that video of us actually doing it in the room.
Yeah, I do. That's right. So that's been something before Matter that we had thought of as far as, you know, abstracted view of IoT, as far as being able to put that near real-time capability in that. So that's something we built with USP for day one.
It's also the reason Tim was very concerned about dumb devices that don't yeah, all right. We still have more time if anybody wants to, if you want to find out the demo at all. We'll have as much time as you guys want to be able to have people take a look at. If you want to see USB in action, Volk is here now, so you're not. Before I end, there is one more question I had, which came up. I'm sorry, I forgot your first name. Oh, behind you. Yes. Yes. Yeah. She was mentioning, she was asking about measurement, speed tests, and the longevity of 143, and what it's good for, what it's not good for. Who's actually adopting 471 instead?
It's dead.
Yeah. Let's talk about it.
So yeah, 143 has been around for a long time. It's TCP based. It's a little bit problematic when you get to.
It's also UDP excluded.
Oh yeah, for latency, but for the speed test parts.
Yeah.
When you get into gigabit speeds on the device and higher, it's not performing very well. And I think one of the main reasons for that is that a device, especially a gateway device, is, you know, with 143 test, you're asking it to either generate traffic or terminate traffic, depending on which way you're testing, upstream versus downstream. But gateway devices were never designed to terminate or generate traffic. They're designed to route traffic, moving it from one side to the other. So they're good at that. They can do that all day long, but when you ask them to generate a gigabit per second, that's a little difficult for them. There's a new test, as Jason mentioned, 471, which is actually an IP layer capacity test. It's UDP based, and it does, I mean, they're already doing a test of it up to 10 gig. So I think it's the direction forward, and I'll let Daniel disagree.
No, I definitely agree. It's the way forward. The problem is that UDP-ST is not quite that efficient to generate 10 gig traffic on regular networks. So when you're saying that devices are not capable of, you know, running a speed test with 1 gigabit, then yeah, UDP is going to be a little bit more efficient, but not that much that you all of a sudden can, you know, run crazy speed tests with high, you know, confidence in the measurements. But yeah, I just want to add tier 143. I don't know. Have we actually deprecated the document?
No, we just updated it to make sure it also talks about USP.
Yeah, but most of the stuff is actually documented mostly in the data model. Yeah, so tier 143 is more or less theory of operations for certain tests. Yeah.
The UDP echo stuff is, I think that is the only place where that is defined on how that works.
Exactly.
But because it's not using it, it's not really using an existing protocol outside. That is where the UDP echo solution is defined. So yeah.
So, just, I agree with what my colleagues said, and of course, 471 will be the future for measurement of network capacity and so on. But as of today, speed test is the only thing that we have, right? 471 is still in different phases. So,
Well, that was my next question about adoption, right?
well, we can ask some device manufacturers. But, I will let you disagree. Well, you had a question, if we are using speed test today, yes, it is being widely used throughout the world as of today, waiting for 471 to emerge and to have a better solution for us to get more statistics, more valuable information that we can get out of the router itself. Yeah.
So there are some people that would like to make you think that regular HTTP speed tests are the only option. In fact, UDP-ST or tier 471 is widely adopted already. There are a few scalability problems with that because people know how to scale like a web server, which is what you need for HTTP speed tests. Scaling UDP speed tests is a little bit more challenging, and a lot of people are coming up with solutions to address that, especially if you need like multiple servers and how do you distribute the traffic. So that's a little bit challenging because if the server is not reliable, then also the results will not be reliable, or you have very little confidence in the measurements, which doesn't really help. So that's where HTTP speed test is still the go-to, but the problem with HTTP speed test is that at higher speeds the results are pretty much useless.
Thomas, thanks.
Okay, Thomas.
No problem. Here's a device manufacturer, and I'm from AVM with all these Fritzbox devices, and we integrated UDP-ST in our boxes. And as far as I can say, it's the best speed test ever. It's a conclusion. So it's faster than all other methods we implemented before. We also had an iPerf solution inside, but it was already implemented inside the kernel to be as fast as possible. But the thing is, it's inside the box, so we terminate at the CPE. Right. So from every different device, it belongs to the processor inside, how much speed you can get. And also with UDP-ST and fiber connections, for example, for some boxes it's just up to get up to 800 megabits. Sorry. So it's really not the solution at all, because all the providers have these exceptions, and now we have the new test, and now it's going to be fine, but still this problem exists. And I don't know anyone who has a better solution for this. So in the end,
solution so far.
Solution so far, but in the end we cannot.
Like democracy.
We can just think about faking the results.
No, so definitely that's the issue that I was mentioning. So just inventing a slightly better measurement protocol doesn't mean that automatically you will have the horsepower to actually run it on your local device. But yeah, I mean, devices are getting more capable, more powerful, and probably there are also going to be some optimizations to, tier 4s and D1 to the way it's doing the measurements to gain a little bit more performance and also run better on lower power devices.
Yeah, also it is UDP, and you have to think about that more and more traffic is going also over quick or something.
Right.
I guess it's definitely the future of the traffic. More and more will be UDP, so it's a good solution. This is why we implemented it, but badly some providers are thinking that's the overall, the helpful solution, but that's not the case.
So do you have any customers that are actually using it?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, they are, okay.
And also for some connections it's okay, for DSL boxes or
I
something.
mean, I was asking about the UDP solution, the UDP-ST.
The UDP-ST client, in this case. We are connecting to the...
Yeah, and they actually prefer those providers
they-
over the TCP-based one.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So I would call out that the UDP speed test there is an open source project, an OB project for that.
Correct,
I'm sure
it's
they would
also
love-
inside our...
I'm sure they would love insight from you guys from implementing it, deploying it in real world, and if you wanted to help enhance it and make it more efficient, I'm sure they'd love that too.
Yeah, cool.
All right. Any other questions? Before we all rest our minds for a little bit, before we obliterate some neurons.